Hey guys, welcome back to Off the Record with A&A. We're going to be talking about some NFL today, starting off with the NFL playoffs. Massey, you want to get into it?
Yeah, so this week we've got the divisional round. It's Chiefs and the Bills on the AFC side. Then we've got Texans and Ravens. I think the best game of the divisional round is definitely the Chiefs and Bills at Buffalo
Yep.
Arena. What do you expect for that game?
I think it's going to be a very close game. You know, it's the first time Mahomes and the Chiefs have been on the road in 6 years. Mahomes' first ever away game in the playoffs. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he adapts. But I think he's excited. I think he's ready for this challenge, and I think it's going to be a very close game. But I just think, like watching past few years, I know this year the Chiefs haven't looked that good, and the Bills are hot. But I just feel like the Chiefs are going to go into Buffalo and win a close game.
Do you think it'll be high scoring like some of the other matchups we've seen between these teams?
It could be, but I see it around like I could see it like 28-24 Chiefs. I don't really see the Chiefs defense giving up 30, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this is one of the better Chiefs defenses. I think they're ranked second in the league, which Mahomes has made the Super Bowl with a lot worse defense before. I think one of the bigger obvious issues for the Chiefs this season is the inconsistency from receiver. So if the Chiefs have one of those games where it's like Rashee Rice can't catch the ball, MVS is dropping the ball, Travis Kelce, who's had somewhat of a down year, who usually has over 1,000 yards, he didn't have that this year. If he doesn't play good, I think it's going to be a tough game to win because the Bills probably are a little underrated just because of how they started off the season, where they looked horrible, but then they kind of did a reverse of what the Eagles did, where they won like 6 games in a row, and I think that they're a pretty good team, and it's at Buffalo, so that's definitely a factor. With Bills Mafia is going to be loud. They want to win. Josh Allen, I thought looked pretty good against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think the Bills are actually going to win this game.
Yeah, I could see this game going either way. It'll be another classic game between Mahomes and Josh Allen. I'm excited.
Yeah, and hopefully they don't show Taylor Swift at all on the broadcast, and they just show the football game.
Yeah, for real, dude.
Maybe she'll get in like a car accident on the way there or something. That'll be awesome. But anyways, who do you think's going to win? The Ravens, who've had a really good year, are playing against the Texans, who no one expected to be in the playoffs. C.J. Stroud is up there for Rookie of the Year. Their offenses look good. Who do you think is going to win that game?
I'm going to say Baltimore. I mean, they've looked like the best team in the NFL this year, but I think the Texans are going to give them a run for their money. Like C.J. Stroud has played excellent all year, rookie quarterback, new head coach for the Texans as well. I just think what they did with that team, drafting C.J. Stroud, um, I think they've done a really good job, and they're going to be a team that's going to be looking really dangerous in the next upcoming years. But I just think their team's too young right now, and they don't have the experience as Baltimore does. And like I said, Baltimore's looked like the best team in the NFL this year. So I just think Baltimore will run away with it late in the game, but I think the Texans make it a good game and a close game overall.
Yeah, and Baltimore is favored by 9 points, so that's something to watch for. I think Baltimore probably will end up covering this just because of it's hard for a rookie quarterback to go in against their defense that's having a pretty good season. And then, Lamar's kind of taken a different approach to this season where in a lot of games it seems like he's hesitant to run and he's just kind of relying on just passing. And, whereas like his first MVP, he had like 1,300 rushing yards and he was like, that was pretty common for him. I think in this game, it's with it being a divisional game, he's going to do whatever. He's not going to be afraid to get hurt. I
Yeah.
think the Ravens' offense is pretty solid, and
Mhm.
I think that the first half might be close, but I think the second half the Ravens are going to get away with this game and they'll win pretty convincingly.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just have to see what Lamar has for us because, man, the Ravens have had some good teams ever since Lamar joined, and they kind of been a little disappointing in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how Lamar plays. But like I said, I think that the Ravens have looked like the best team this year.
Yeah, and even if the Texans lose this game by whatever points, still props to D'Amico Ryan for how quickly he turned away Houston. He turned around Houston because after Deshaun Watson left, and they have that trade that everyone made fun of with DeAndre Hopkins, and like their franchise was in a lot of turmoil and dysfunction. And they've done a great job rebuilding through the draft. Even guys like John Mechie, um, and like later round picks, they've done a good job with. Their receiving core is young. Their defense, they did a good job getting Will Anderson, and they just overall have a lot of room to grow in a lot of different positions. And I think they've done a good job filling those spots. And they have the potential to like kind of run things in the AFC South if they keep building off this because the Jaguars just look completely stagnant.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with the Jags this year.
Yeah, not good. And the NFC playoffs, which I think is probably one of the weaker years for the NFC. The 49ers are obviously the dominant team, and they are favored by 9 points against the Packers. Do you see an upset here?
No, I don't see an upset. Going Green Bay, going into San Fran. I do not see it, especially Green Bay just historically just doesn't play well against San Fran in the playoffs. But props to them being the Cowboys. I know it's the Cowboys in the playoffs, so like everyone, people weren't surprised, but a lot of people were actually picking Dallas to win since they've had their great home streak. But I think Jordan Love balled out against Dallas, and Aaron Jones had an amazing game too. I could see this one being close as well, but I just don't see the Packers winning with the young team too. Like they'll be good. I think they'll run the NFC North again with Jordan Love and their young core receivers and their young defense. But props to the Packers though for making the playoffs as the youngest team ever to make the playoffs and being the first 7 seed to win a playoff game.
Yeah, and a lot of people were wrong about Jordan Love, myself included. I was kind of surprised to see how good he looked against the Cowboys. I mean, there were a lot of throws that he made that like that it was solid. Like it wasn't just like the Cowboys. I mean, obviously the Cowboys didn't play a great game, but you have to give him credit for just carving up their defense as well. He made a lot of tough throws, and I think the first half of the season for him was bad, but I think he responded pretty well to that, especially after the Chiefs game. I think is when finally things started to come together for him. Things started to click. And,
Yeah.
way too early to make a statement like he could be a franchise guy for the Packers or say something, even if he comes out and has a horrible game against the 49ers, it'd be too early to say, yeah, he's not going to work out. But I think this definitely is going to give him a boost, and it's going to be interesting to see how he can build off this going forward. Um, but yeah, I think the 49ers cover the spread. I don't see this game being close at all. I think probably in the second quarter is when the 49ers will start to separate. Their defense is just way too good. And they're not the Cowboys. Kyle Shanahan knows how to come in and win, take care of business in a divisional game like this. I think a lot of people don't like to give Brock Purdy that respect, but I think he's going to do a good job spreading the ball out with that offense, and McCaffrey's going to have a good game as well. I just do not see this being close at all.
Yeah.
And then let's go to our last divisional game where the Lions are hosting a divisional game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're favored by 6.5 points. No one would have thought they would have been here at the start of the season. They're having an incredible run. Who do you think wins this game?
This is the one where it's close. I could see Tampa Bay coming in and winning. Like Tampa Bay looks good, but it's just their lack of consistency they've had all year. Baker Mayfield looks like a really good quarterback. Like he could be top 10 quarterback in the league one game, and then the next game he throws 2 picks or no touchdowns. Like they've had some really bad games this year, the Bucs. But They've also had some really good games. I know their division is weak, so they got kind of lucky making it into the playoffs. But props to them just carving up the Eagles. I know the Eagles kind of became trash later in the year, and their defense looked horrendous. But like props to the Bucs for winning that game and like blowing the Eagles out. Their defense looked really strong. So I could see this going either way, but I'm going to give just the edge to Detroit. Detroit's fired up, especially after winning their first playoff game in like 30 some years. But I just think Detroit, they have a little more experience. They have a little more experience at quarterback, and I just think the home crowd's going to like roll them through and they'll win, but it'll be like a close game. I could see it coming down to like 3 points or a touchdown to win the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Buccaneers will definitely cover the spread, but I think the Lions get it done. Their offense looks really good. Um, and I think that Baker Mayfield has had a great season, and he'll probably see some new contract money coming up for the job he's done. The division they're in is definitely a little bit weaker, but just still being able to win that home wild card playoff game is a good job on his part for this season. A great job on his part for the season. I think the Lions take care of business, and I think the 49ers, whoever wins this game, the 49ers are going to beat in the NFC Championship. I
Yeah.
think they'll be in the Super Bowl. I would even say I think the 49ers are probably the best team in the playoffs. Even though they did lose to Baltimore in the regular season, I still like that Kyle Shanahan system they have going right now, and I think their defense is going to be really good when it counts. But another thing to talk about was Matthew Stafford and the Rams. I thought he looked really good. I thought that was some of the Tom Brady made a comment that overall play in the NFL has been down this year. I don't think Matthew Stafford is in that category because that game he had, like he was doing no look passes. He had one pass I think was on like 3rd and 6 where the
Yeah.
defender was like all over the receiver and he like fit it in there perfectly for that touchdown. And
Honestly,
he
I
played a
think
great game. I thought he played way better than Jared Goff. And Jared Goff didn't play bad at all.
I I think honestly the Rams should have won that game. There were some bad calls late in the game, in my opinion, watching, but I think the Rams could have won that game. They just lacked, they just couldn't capitalize in the red zone.
Yeah, they settled for was it 3 field goals on their last 3 drives?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to win that game. You got to score a touchdown. You can't have all those field goals. Um, and another part of that was I think the Rams had to give out too much money to guys like Aaron Donald and the bigger pieces in their organization because last year was obviously really bad, but I think we're kind of seeing like that effect after winning the Super Bowl of now, they have all these huge contracts and it's harder to, build around that. But one thing they did do a really good job of was drafting Puka Nakua. And I think that even though CJ Stroud is a quarterback and he's led his team to the divisional round, I think that Puka Nakua breaking the receiving yard record for a rookie, and if you just watch him play, like he's breaking the first 1 or 2 tackles almost automatically. Like he's he looks way better than Cooper Kupp. I mean, like this season
Yeah.
alone. I think you got to give the award to him.
I would agree. I mean, CJ Stroud played really well. I mean, he took a team from 3 wins to the playoffs, and now they're in divisional round. But I just think Nakua deserves it just a little more after breaking the rookie receiving record, especially behind guys like Cooper Kupp. When Puka Nakua should have honestly been their wide receiver too. But Matthew Stafford trusted him after the way he played while Cooper Kupp was out those first 4 games. And I think Cooper Kupp being out those first 4 games is a big reason why Nakua had the season he did. Who knows if he's wide receiver 2 all year? Who knows if he even gets to 1,000 yards?
Yeah, I think it definitely helped his confidence out, and he also has the right attitude where he was going to those breakfast meetings with Stafford and Cooper Kupp, and he'd sit in there and he'd listen, and they wouldn't even really acknowledge him. They just say his number, like, oh, he's got to do this, he's got to do that, and the whole time he's in there kind of learning. I think he's got a great attitude, and he's got good work ethic, and it's kind of crazy that he got drafted as late as he did, and he's been as good as he is this season.
Yeah, I also want to say I think it's impressive how we had quite a few teams, honestly, that are supposed to have down years or not expect to make the playoffs and made the playoffs, like the Texans. Like, nobody picked them to make the playoffs this year. The Packers, nobody picked them to make the playoffs. The Bucs, nobody picked them to make the playoffs. And I don't really think many people saw Detroit making it to the divisional round this year either.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought Detroit could win their division, and same with the Bucs. But I don't think anyone thought those teams would get to the divisional round, and then I don't think anyone would think that the Lions would be hosting the divisional game. Like, they're the second best remaining team in the NFC. That's pretty good for them. And their coordinators will actually be candidates for some NFL head coaching jobs, so that'd be something to look out for if they have to find new guys, new replacements for them. And speaking of which, let's get into some of the offseason stuff. So with NFL jobs, Bill Belichick's looking around at the Falcons. The Patriots hired from within, which I thought was kind of weird. I think they should have hired someone from the outside after, things just fell apart for them. What are some of your offseason thoughts, Raina?
Yeah, I agree. I don't really like the decision the Patriots made, especially after firing Belichick. I know he hasn't been great these last few years, and the team kind of just went downhill after Brady left. But I really thought they could have hired somebody out there. There was maybe a couple, some candidates out there they could have got, but who knows? They like the guy, so we'll see how it works out. But Belichick leaving the Patriots, I wasn't surprised seeing that. But also, it's just going to be interesting to see if he actually does get a head coaching job, if he takes a year off, or if he just decides to be like a coordinator under a team.
Yeah, I don't see him being a coordinator under a team. I think that I don't know. I just think that at this point for him, there's nothing really to gain there. I don't think he'd like that. One thing that's kind of standing out to me was the Titans moving on.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the right decision. I think their dysfunction has been from their front office. I think Mike Vrabel's a good coach, and he's definitely going to find a job somewhere else. And I think the Titans will end up regretting letting go of him.
Yeah, I don't think that was a good decision by the Titans. I mean, when you have a team with rookie A.J. Brown, prime Derrick Henry, and you have like all pro safety Kevin Byron, and then you make the playoffs 2 years in a row with Mike Vrabel, and then they just start selling their top guys. Like, what's the coach supposed to do when you're drafting like terrible receivers? You draft two quarterbacks in back-to-back years. Like, the front office just didn't do their job, and they kind of just blamed it on the head coach.
Yeah, and I think it goes to show that it wasn't his fault, because after the front office traded away A.J. Brown and the front office made these decisions to, basically just ruin the team, that's when things went downhill. I think players love Vrabel. They've even came out and said that they really like playing for him. Derrick Henry loves him. You don't really hear bad things about him. He was a great player on the Patriots. He's got a great mindset, and I think that is a mistake. Moving on, I think the biggest question for the offseason is the Cowboys. Dak Prescott has another just awful playoff game. I think they were down 48-16, and then, of course, he got his garbage time stats, but, he threw a pick six. He just looked horrible in that loss.
Yeah, he looked bad. It was just hard to watch, after seeing the season Dak had this year. It was a real turnaround after last year, but, it's just the same old for the Cowboys in the last almost 20 years since they won the last Super Bowl almost. They've just been the same every year in the playoffs. They almost find a way, or they win the division, and then they get to the playoffs, and I don't know what happens, but they just decide not to play or whatever. It's just kind of surprising to me with a team with that much money, and like that much rich history that they still can't find a way to win playoff games or even make the NFC Championship since I think like '95.
Yeah, and people like to bring up they've had back-to-back 12-win seasons, but I don't think I can remember like a more meaningless back-to-back 12-win seasons. I mean, they didn't do anything. They got bounced in the playoffs and they looked horrible. They didn't get any momentum from it. It's just like kind of a cycle. I mean, they look good in the regular season. They're like, oh, you know what, we could do something this year, and then Dak Prescott throws 2 interceptions in the playoff game and they lose.
Yeah,
So I think
I think
if I'm the Cowboys, you're just wasting time with Dak Prescott. You got to get rid of him. You got to find someone that can win a divisional round game. You're the Cowboys. You have a lot of talent. You're going to make the playoffs. At this point, you need someone that can take you to that next level. And with his new contract coming up, they'd have to pay him, what is it, 55 million a year?
yeah,
Why would you shell out that high of a, percentage of what you're going to be paying your players to a quarterback that you know is just going to fold under pressure and throw 2 interceptions in these games that actually count for something? So I
yeah.
think the question is, do you stick with Mike McCarthy? I I think at this point, like anyone that says you stick with Dak, like you're just wasting time and you're kind of just accepting failure.
Yeah, I don't really see. I don't know. We got a small sample size of McCarthy. I don't really think it's completely on him. I don't really know. I think McCarthy's also another coach that's the king of having regular season teams. I mean, look at what he did in Green Bay. Had great teams in the regular season and couldn't find a way to make it to the Super Bowl, especially when Green Bay was the number one seed a lot. You have a great quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, and they just could never make it to the Super Bowl. So that's also another thing to look at. But yeah, I think the Cowboys have just wasted their years on Dak. They did the same thing with Tony Romo. Jerry Jones just doesn't want to get rid of Dak or Tony Romo because they're locker room guys. But like, I don't care if you have guys that aren't going to crumble under pressure or can't perform in the big games when it matters, you got to get rid of them.
Yeah, and I was looking it up here. They actually just released 30 minutes ago that they're going to stick with Mike McCarthy for this upcoming season. So I guess we know what they're going to do now. So now it's just they got to focus on finding a quarterback, a QB1. That's got to be their main focus of the offseason. And then their defense, like Dan Quinn did a great job. I don't know what happened in that game. He's still going to be a major candidate for, some head coaching jobs. So, I mean, that's got to be a focus too. But I think the clear, problem number one is Dak Prescott. Do not give him $55 million to go out and play like that.
Yeah, I think Dan Quinn has done a great job ever since coming to Dallas. I think he was a great head coach in Atlanta. Took him to the Super Bowl. They kind of choked that game, but just building that team in Atlanta, I think, was impressive. But yeah, I don't know what happened to the game. Also, they kind of just came out sloppy, and then Dak throws a pick, and they go down 14-0 quick, and then the Cowboys get down the 50-yard line and kind of fail to get some offense going. So, like the defense was probably tired at the same time. And when you go down 14-0 or 20-0 in the playoffs, a lot of players or a lot of times teams start getting nervous. They panic. So that could have also been a big problem with the defense.
And yeah, it definitely was. And when you watch the film, it's like some of those throws it's not even like he was trying to force something in there. It's like you just watch it and he's like, it's hard to read what he was even thinking when you go back and look at the tape because there were several throws he made that there was two defenders and the receiver wouldn't be open. And then I thought it was weird how he got mad at CeeDee Lamb on a ball he did try to fit in there that wasn't a great throw at all. And CD tried to catch it, but it was a hard catch and he didn't make it. And then you see Dak come over and give him an earful. And I think that he was kind of taking out the frustration that he should have with himself on their best receiver.
Yeah.
And another thing to think about is the NFL draft coming up. I think this one is loaded with quarterback talent. The obvious guys that are being talked about right now are Caleb Williams, who I don't see anyone else. I don't see another quarterback being taken ahead of him. And I think the odds that he doesn't go number one, I think he's going to be the first overall pick. And that takes us to the Chicago Bears. Is there any way the Bears mess this up and they don't take Caleb Williams number one?
I don't know. I mean, you're saying, they're saying keep Justin Fields, give him a receiver. It's just like, but they gave him DJ Moore this year and he didn't perform again. So I don't know. I think it's time to just cut your losses and draft another quarterback, in my opinion. I mean, Justin Fields, he has the potential to be a really good quarterback, but I just think not in Chicago. He's going to need to go somewhere else. I just think Chicago's going to hold on to him for too long, and I think they got to draft Caleb. But
this is like the great value version of the Dak cycle, where like they start the year awful. He plays horrible.
Yeah.
Then he gets hurt. He comes back. He puts on some nice rushing yards, and he throws a touchdown against teams that really aren't great or aren't in the playoff hunt. And then Bears fans are like, "Oh, it's our front office. Let's give Fields year 4 or year 5." And it's like, you have the number one pick. I mean, if your goal is to win as a franchise, you're not going to stick with someone that has showed you mediocrity after mediocrity each of his years. He's not developing. They can throw blame on other people, which Justin tried to do when he threw a game-losing pick. I think it was against Tampa, and then he blamed their offensive coordinator for an interception he threw. But, when you watch his tape, he cannot read an NFL defense at all. When his first read isn't open, he scrambles out of clean pockets and either tries to force things, which results in him having a lot of turnovers, or, he does have some good running plays. But as an NFL quarterback, if you're going to be the franchise quarterback one, you have to be able to read an NFL defense, and you have to be able to throw the ball, which he can't do either one of those things. He's athletic, but he's not an NFL quarterback. People like to bring up Ohio State. It's easier when you're throwing to, 5 wide receivers that were probably ranked in the top 30 of all players in their class. And if you watch his tape at Ohio State, it's like his receivers already have 3 or 4, steps of separation. Whereas in the NFL, if someone's open by a step or two, like, you got to be able to like fit that in there. You got to make that pass. And he's just turnover after turnover. They like to blame their offensive coordinator. They like to blame their front office, who have also been dysfunctional. But they went out and got him weapons, still a losing record. Caleb Williams has the potential to help you guys win playoff games, which with Justin Fields, the best you can hope is that you're just going to sneak past 500 and maybe get that 7th spot. I think if the Bears don't take Caleb Williams, this would be about, the most Chicago Bears debacle ever. You got the number one pick. You got to go out and get someone that's going to turn your franchise around.
Yeah. What I think they do, they draft Caleb Williams, and then you could still get a receiver at 9, like Romeo Odunze from Washington. They think is going to go drop to like 8 to 10 range, and I think you could still draft him as a receiver. Or you draft someone at O-line at number 9, because their O-line has also been atrocious as well. But yeah, I think they got to just move on with Justin Fields. You get some good value out of Fields, because there are some teams that would like taking him so they could get some value out of him. But
yeah,
I think you got to go with Caleb Williams. If you're going to have the number 1 overall pick back-to-back years, you cannot screw this up.
And that just goes to show, like, Justin Fields, what could they get out of him? Like a 3rd or a 4th round draft pick? Like, I think you got to get something out of him while you can. Trade him away. Caleb Williams he's pretty mobile too. Like, it's not like you're just settling. Like, you're getting someone that can make some running plays. Obviously, he's not as athletic as Justin, but the difference is you're taking someone that's going to be able to read an NFL defense. He's not going to freak out when his first read is open and run out of clean pockets. He has the ability to sit in the pocket, read an NFL defense, and he knows where the ball needs to go. And he also has a great arm. He has I think that some of the comments earlier in their season or his sophomore year at USC were like, "Oh, he's another Patrick Mahomes." You can't just say that. It's way too early. But if you could just go off talent, like, you got it. If Caleb Williams doesn't pan out, I mean, that's way better than just having this yearly cycle of being like, Justin Fields was mediocre, but maybe he'll be better. Like, that's just a losing franchise.
Yeah.
You have the number 1 pick. You got to go out and get Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's talk about the MVP. We mentioned Rookie of the Year earlier. I think this is one of the weaker MVP races. Lamar Jackson has had a great season, but even if you look at his stats from when he won the last MVP, I think he had better stats. He had more rushing yards, and I think he might have thrown more touchdowns as well when he originally won the MVP than this year. But I think he should win it. Maybe Christian McCaffrey. I would say Christian McCaffrey, but I don't know if he'll be up there because I don't think they really give it to non-quarterbacks.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think Lamar is probably going to win the MVP, but I think the quarterback play this year has just been down from past years, and I think Christian McCaffrey, honestly, I think he deserves the MVP, but they're not going to give it to him because they don't like to give the MVP to anybody besides a quarterback. But I do think Christian McCaffrey will probably win Offensive Player of the Year, but I think Lamar Jackson will get the MVP.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I think that even guys like Patrick Mahomes didn't have a great year. It's not entirely his fault, obviously, because when you have all these receivers with high drop rates, it's kind of hard. In the Packers game, when you throw the ball 50 yards downfield and MVS just goes right through his hands. And I mean, it's just like frustrating moments like that. Josh Allen, it felt like he was throwing an interception every game for a while. I mean, he didn't have a great season either. Jalen Hurts, the Philadelphia Eagles, they just fell apart. Brock Purdy was up there for a little bit, but the Ravens game kind of hurt him. So I think when Tom Brady came out and said that the NFL is kind of taking a step back and it's like just not great football anymore, I think that was a great point. I don't think that's like a retired player just bashing on people. I think that was intelligent, and I think a lot of fans agree. Because if you compare college football to the NFL this season, college football games were way better. I mean, you could tune into weekly conference games in college football that were just way more entertaining than NFL games. The college football playoff was awesome. And, I think the NFL, like, you just watch a game and it's like, I think it's partially the NFL's fault with the rules where it's like, you shouldn't be throwing a flag because the quarterback gets lightly hit after he throws the ball. I mean, I think stuff like that's ruining the game. And I think the NFL this offseason kind of needs to change up their rules a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened. The NFL definitely had a down year. Teams, especially like the Chiefs, like when you have the second best team in the AFC, which is the Bills, and they finish the season with 6 losses, it's kind of embarrassing. Same with the NFC. Cowboys finished second in the NFC with 5-6 losses. Like, it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, and Brady brought up these like bad habits that players are learning. Because when he played, you couldn't really throw across the middle because Ray Lewis was going to injure someone. If you play the Steelers, one of their defensive backs is going to lay someone out too. And I think that like the NFL making the game so much softer, as we've kind of seen, like there's going to be some years like this where it's like the quality isn't there.
Yeah, we're running out of time, so I think we're going to wrap this episode up. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, also comment and give us some topics you want to see, and also subscribe for upcoming episodes.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.